Recording in progress.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to ART 196, Introduction to Designing Web Graphics for the fall semester 2021. Today, we're going to continue with lesson 9, which covers various ways of adding content to the templates or the template that we added to the child pages that you will create from those templates. Today, I think, will be the beginning of one of the hardest parts of adding content, and that will be adding tables. And I'll give you a little bit of history of tables. We'll introduce some basic tables to show you how they work. And then we're going to style them. That's in the hardest part. Probably the hardest part of styling tables is when you adapt it for smartphone. But it'll probably take us a couple of days to get this part done. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue with the lesson, get started. Now, I've already added some of the basic things that everybody should know how to do by now. We added, I added the 3 quotes over to the left. And something that you need to remember when you copy and paste the information in here is that we do want this to be a paragraph tag. But notice that there's no block quote wrapping around both the quote and the author. So I'll go ahead and I'll add that. I'll just do it by hand. So I have the left caret bracket and I'll type in block quote. Okay. And then right around the end, because this is left from before, you can see that it styles the quote, and we have the paragraph tag in there. The last thing that I need to do, though, for John Muir instead is that either type in the code view cite, because that is the syntax that's used for the author. Or I can do it from up here where it says P tag, click that and hit Command T, and then just put in cite, C-I-T-E, and that will format it correctly. Hit the return key a couple of times and you can see that it changed it to italic and it made it flush right. So now we're set to go. Then I also copied and pasted the text that goes in the right aside. And there's only a couple of things left to do. And that I left in here is that I'll go ahead and I'll select the placeholder H2 heading tag and I'll delete it. We'll go ahead and we'll also select the paragraph. Make sure that it's highlighted in blue and then delete it. And then there's one other thing down here. We need to remember that where it says accidental educators, I'll go ahead and I'll select that, hit Command T for the tag editor, and this becomes an H2 heading tag. Okay, and then automatically, as soon as I change it, notice that because early on we formatted it correctly, and we're with CSS and we're set to go. So I added events and classes and I added this text by hand. And now what we're ready to do is we're ready to add, we're going to start by adding a table in here. So with the P tag selected, okay, I'm going to go ahead and you can either insert from up here under the menu, and that would be under, hold on, HTML. And I would want to add a table from here. Or we can also go over to the insert tab over here and make sure that we're set to HTML and that we want to add a table from here as well. And here's the table right here. So it doesn't matter which one you use. So I'm going to go ahead and double click and I want it to be inserted after. I don't want it to be nested inside it. I don't want it to wrap around the text. I just want to insert the table afterwards. Now, a little dialog box will pop up. And we're going to use the default settings for this. We're going to use 2 rows and 4 columns. Typically what tables are just simply a grid to contain various types of data. It can contain text, it can contain images, it can contain a whole variety of things. In fact, back in the day, not too many years ago, this is the way that we structured pages. It was, instead of using CSS to hold all the contents together, we used tables. But it wasn't very efficient, wasn't very effective, and especially when it became necessary to create pages that were responsive, all it did was shrink the page down to fit the size of the screen, and that's it. We weren't able to reformat it to conform to the new size of the screen size and make it adaptable to that specific smaller size or larger size. So we're just going to put in 2 rows. Table widths can be in percentages or in pixels. We're going to use 4 columns, and we're going to have a border thickness of 1, and we'll just leave it at that. Typically, tables look really horrible. They don't look very good at all. And you can see what I have here, that here's the table, and we can begin to sort of add content. We can just go ahead, and you can see that it's broken down into 4 columns and 2 rows. And when you click on each of these cells, you get what is called a TD, which stands for table data. And if we look at the bottom here, and we look at the different the tag selector, we have table data. I can select the table row. So that's TR, that's what that stands for. And the whole table row will be selected. I can also select the table itself. So we can select from here. Let me click back in here. Having a hard time doing that this morning for whatever reason. So if I come back in, here's the table row. There's the table. Oh, come on. Yeah, sometimes it's not behaving correctly. And that happened. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some of the content that they want us to put in here and by hand. And you can create your tables by hand if you wish. So the first one would be date. You might want to note that when we initially inserted the table, that the rows and columns were all an equal size grid. But as soon as I added the word date, notice how it stretched that cell out. So that what you might want to think in terms of, and this is how I think of them, is that tables kind of can function like a pair of spandex pants. If there is no content in a cell or in a row or anything, it really shrinks down to its minimum size. But as you add content, it will expand to fit whatever it is you want to put in there. And we'll see later on in the last lesson, lesson 12, we can use tables to create an early version of what we would call a slideshow. So the next content that we want to put in here is an event. And notice how, again, the column changes its formatting. And then we want to put, let's see, I think date. If this is not quite correct, that's okay. And I think the last one here would be cost, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly. Got event, date. Let me see here. Location. Oh, I put date in again, so that's wrong. All right, that's okay. This should be location. And the last one is cost. So I'm just typing these in by hand. Then we can come down here to the bottom to the next row. And we can type in more data. May 1st would be under the date. And then under the event would be May Day Parade. And under location, this is just kind of a formal thing here, City Hall. But just showing you that when you insert tables like this, if you don't have a whole lot of content, it might be easier just to insert the information by hand. Now, if you need additional rows or additional columns, that is all very doable. I can come back in here and I can select any part of this. And let's go ahead and let me try again to select the whole table. Come on, come on. There we go. And you'll notice down at the bottom in our properties panel that the width is set to 100%. We can change the cell padding and the cell space here if we want. We can have use the default for a line. We haven't assigned any class. We have border 1. Now down here, we can also add, and we can, the number of rows and columns here. So I'm going to switch from live view to design view and see if that won't help us at all. So with it selected, I should be able to come in here and add the number of rows. So with it selected, let's go ahead and select any one in here. And it should be able to allow me to do that. And nothing just yet. So it should be under the properties panel. There is a little section down here in the bottom where it allows us to do that. So let me go ahead again and select the whole table. And there we go. So under design view, when I select the whole table using the tag selector, I can go ahead and down here under columns or rows, I can add. It will, if I add, it will automatically add columns to the right, and it will automatically add rows to the bottom. So if I wanted to add a couple more rows, let's just say 4 rows and hit space, the tab, notice that it added a couple. And you can see also because we specified for the border 1 point, they look kind of clunky like this. They're really not very attractive. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to insert one that's already been prepared for us, quite a bit of content, and then we're going to go ahead and style it using CSS, which is what we've been doing all along. So I'm going to go back from design view back to live view. And let's go ahead and move this down a little bit. I'm going to make sure the table is selected. And I want to insert in place of this another one. So what they have done for us is that here is the calendar HTML. And you can see that if I use since it is an HTML document, I can come down here and I can make sure that the whole table is selected. Okay, so I'll make sure that the table is selected. I don't want the body tag, I want the table selected. So let me come back up. That's not right. Let's click inside here. Table data. I want to select not table row, not table body, whole table. There we go. So the table is selected. And I'm going to copy it. Make sure that it's highlighted in blue. Command C. I'm going to go back to the events and classes that I saved. And now I'm going to go ahead and with the table selected here, I'm going to go ahead and paste. And you can see that it just inserted that other table. And it's already been partially formatted for us with the date, event, location, and cost. Now I can select the placeholder that we had here. So let me go ahead and select again the table. And just with that select highlighted in blue, I'm going to go ahead and hit delete. And we're done. So we've added a brand new table that they already created for us in HTML. It has quite a bit of content in here. But what we want to do now is to style it so that the rows and columns look aesthetically a little bit more pleasing. The borders look more pleasing. And also, as a result, in addition to looking more pleasing, they will be more functional, I think, as well. So the first thing we need to do is we're going, instead of having it 100%, the width, we're going to have it maybe 90, 95%. And we also need to, rather than use the typeface or the family that we've been using, a condensed typeface would be more appropriate probably. So I'm going to switch to CSS Designer. Okay. And I'm going to add a brand new selector. So let's make sure that we have green style selected, global, and I'm going to add a brand new selector here. And this is going to be section table. Now I have not added a section yet, and I need to do that. So I'll put section space table. Hit the return key twice. Now, if I were to proceed to add properties to this, for example, let me go ahead and do that now, just so you can see that I'm missing a step. If I come under the type and we look at the type font family here, I want to make sure that the one that's selected with Arial narrow, the first one right here, is the one that's selected, but it didn't change anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down over here to my DOM and I'm going to select the table. And with the table selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit the little plus button here. And I want it to wrap, I want the section tag to be wrapped around the whole thing. And as soon as I do that, again, if it didn't change, I should delete the section table and try again. Because that's happened before with me. I've put everything in there correctly, but for some reason, CSS was failing. So by deleting it, starting over again, for whatever reason, then it worked. So I'll wrap the tag around it. I don't want a div tag. I want a section tag. Hit the return key. And notice how the text has been reformatted. It's working. So I'm good to go with all the rest of the styles that we want to create in here. So that was for the section table. Now, in addition to that, what we're going to do, instead of set to 100%, we're going to come back up here and under width, we're going to use percentages. Now watch what happens when I just select percentage. Okay, it's set to 0%, but it collapses into nothing. I want it to be 95%. 90% would be good too. And then that stretches it out just a little bit. There we go. But brings it in from the border just a tad. Now margins, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add to the bottom. We're going to go ahead and add 2 M's. Okay, so put in here 2 M's. How do they choose this? That's something that you would want to kind of experiment with on your own. Okay, font family, we already have changed that. Font size, we're going to change the font size a little bit to 95%. So let's go back in here and font style, font size. We're going to use a percentage. And I'm going to put in 95%, or wait a minute, 90%, sorry. So it's a little bit smaller. Since there's so much information in here, the 100% or anything larger probably wouldn't work. Okie doke. So we want just a border along the bottom. And that's going to be, we're going to go ahead and select the borders. Select just the bottom one. And we want the, and you'll see that underneath each of these rows, there'll be a really nice thin line to help separate it and make it easier to read for the viewer to read. So I want border bottom. I'm going to use solid here, and we're going to use 3 pixels. So the width up here, it'll be in pixels, and I want it to be 3. That's a good size. 2 pixels would have worked as well. And now we need to specify the color. We've already done that before. It should be 060. It's a green, and I can't remember which green it is, so I'm just going to type it in, 060. It's that one, so we'll click in there. And now it should pop up, and we should see in here. Okay, why aren't you changing? See, when things get screwed up like that. I know why. It did add it at the very bottom. So we're going to change the table data. So it did add it to the bottom. So we're good. I'm forgetting a step here. So gradually, notice that the rows are cleaning up a little bit. They fit a little bit nicer, but we're going to change a few things even further. So now we're going to style the table cells themselves. So we need to create a couple of new selectors. So I'm going to come back up here. Again, make sure that green styles are selected, global. And I'm going to go ahead and select the plus. And I want this one to be section. Whoops, can't spell right. Section, space, table, TD for table data. And I also want it to apply to the section for the table header, which we have not specified yet. So we want it to be section TH for table header. Okie doke. So we've got that. So let's go ahead and change the padding a little bit. So padding is going to be 4 pixels. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to go down to padding. Gives us a little bit more space all the way around. 4 pixels. We want the text alignment to be flush left. So we're going to make text alignment. Where's alignment here? We want it to be flush left. Okay, overall. We want the border top to be, and this is for the table data. So watch what happens now. We want the border top. We're going to make the width, let's see, 1 pixel. So pixels, I want to be just 1. Okay. The style is going to be solid. You may notice that there's other styles that are used. You can use double lines, groove lines, dash lines and stuff. But for the most part, we just stick with solid right now. And we want under the color, we want it to be 090. Okay, same one that we use below, this deep green. There. Now notice how beneath everything, beneath each line, or above each line, notice that we have a nice thin line, and that adds to the readability. And at the very bottom of it, we have that heavier line. So we're doing pretty good here. We're going to go ahead and create a new rule for the section header, which we have not specified yet, because the header for tables, to distinguish it from the rest, is going to be the text color will be yellow and the background will be green, just like we've used before, so that we have for the date, event, location, and cost. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create that rule right now. So that will be section TH. Okay, section TH. Okay, and then nothing will change yet because we haven't specified yet which is the table header. So I'm going to go ahead and select, but go ahead and make the necessary changes. I want the color here to be the FFC, which is that light yellow. That's the color of the text. We want the text alignment. Whoops. Yeah, it should be. There we go. Okay. Text alignment is to be centered. We want the border bottom to be solid. There we go. We want it to be style to be solid. We want it to be 6 pixels and to be 060 for the color. So let's go up here. We want it to be in pixels and we need it to be 6. Come on. Come on. Pixels. Six pixels. And then the color is going to be 090. That's that deep green that we've been using. But notice that nothing here has changed. So what we need to do is I'm going to switch from live view to design view real quick. And I'm going to select this box in here. And I want it to be where it says table data. That's selected. And down at the bottom here, I'm going to change. There's a little in the properties panel. There's a little box that says header. When I click on that, notice that it will change. Now, I didn't specify the background color yet, did I? So let me go back to that section table header. Let's click here and under layout, background color is 090. That's this color right here. There we go. So now notice that the date appears. So what I need to do for the rest of these is do the same thing. I'm going to select each of these. I'm going to click and highlight them like so. And then at the bottom, make sure that they are specified as table headers. And we're good to go. Okay. So notice how we're gradually fine-tuning the appearance of our table, slow but sure. And again, there's a lot of these to do, and I forget. So what I'm going to do is we're going to begin adding some more content here. So now what we're going to do to be able to control the display, the table display for each of these is what I need to do is I need to create 4 distinct section styles, one for the date, one for the event, one for the location, and one for the cost. Add specifics to those. I'm going to go back from design view to live view, but I'm going to have to go back to design view again. When do you know to go back to design view? You don't always. You have to, if it's not working for you in live view, then the safe thing is to go to design view and see if you can't make the necessary selections there. So far, so good. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to create section.date. So we're going to create we'll do these now and you'll see where I add them. It's a little bit different than what we've done before. Section space dot date. So I'm just adding them all now. I'm going to add another one. I'm going to say section dot event. And there's a space between section and dot event. And the same with the date. So let's go ahead and add another one as soon as that one's done. And we're going to do one for location. Section space dot location. So it's important to pay, close attention to the syntax, make sure that they're all lowercase and lower. And notice that I misspelled section here. I put in 2 O's, only need 1. Hopefully this works. And if it doesn't, then I go back and redo it. Now we want section cost. So we're taking each one of those columns and formatting them. So this is going to be section space dot cost. Okay, so now we need to specify for each of those what we're going to do with them. So I'm going to go ahead and under, okay, hold on here. What I'm going to do is we haven't really specified what each of these columns are to look like. So for example, for the date, it's going to be 6 M's for the width. We want it to be for cost. It's going to be 4 M's and the alignment is going to be center. What about some of the others here that I've been working on? So I don't think anything changes for that, but what we need to do, and this is where it gets a little tricky. I'm going to need to go back to, so let me go ahead and change those. Let's go ahead and change the width for the date. So under date, under width, I'm going to go ahead and it's going to be in M's. So I'll make it 6. And you'll notice so far nothing is changing, will be changing. So that's 6. Okay. And then under the cost down here, what we want to do is we're going to have a width of 4 M's. So let's go ahead and change the width of it and use M's again. And I want this to be 4. And I want the text to be centered. 4. Okay. And then under text, I want it to be centered. Okay. And you'll note that nothing really has changed yet because we haven't specified a class for each of these columns. So what we need to do now is we're going to switch from live view to design view. And why this is the case, but now I can click and I can drag all of these to highlight them. Okay. So with these highlighted, Now I can come down here where it says class, and I can specify for that one that I created. It should be under date, under D. Notice that there's lots of classes that we're not using. Okay. So I'm going to click down here and keep going until I find the one that we just created for date. Lots of classes, very awkward, but this is what we have to do. And there it is, date, teeny tiny little text here. Now let's go ahead and do the same for all of the ones under event. Highlight them all. And again, really the only way you can highlight them like this by clicking and dragging is when you're viewing it under design view. And then again, under class, I'm going to select, which one was this? Got to look up here. Event, sorry, there we go. So this one's going to be event. Click here and let's scroll again. Get all the way down to the E's until we find event. And there it is right there. I'm going to do the same for the other ones. Under location, select in here and drag until the entire column is selected. Come down under class, which currently is selected in none, and create location, or select location, I should say. And that's all the way down under the L's. Kind of awkward, but you know, that's just the way it goes right now. As I said, formatting tables is not an easy proposition. So once they are formatted and you're happy with the appearance and you're happy with how they work, then make sure that you keep these styles intact, and you can always use them in the future or something else. So let's go back down, keep going. LM. I went too far. Come on. There it is, right there. Teeny tiny text, location. Make sure that it's selected. HIJKL. Come on. Oh, come on. And this is where, when I'm broadcasting to you, the application takes a fair amount of memory, and so does the Zoom. So there, now it's working okay. G, H, there we go, location. And then we have the last one. So I'm going to go ahead and select the cost. And this is where you should really see the difference. Click and drag. So that they're all selected. And now at least we don't have to scroll quite so far. We just go down to the C's and select cost. Come on, where are you? Cost. There is cost. Make sure that cost is selected. And you can notice, now watch what happens when I switch from design view and I go back to live view. The one that's the most apparent in its change is cost. Notice how the column width has been shortened. Notice how the text is now centered within that column. And we're pretty much set to go. We could, let me go ahead and insert a table from another source. And then what we can do is we'll call it a day, and then we will format it. It is slightly different, but instead of inserting an HTML table, we're gonna, if you wanted to insert tabular data from another source, you know, that if you had an Excel spreadsheet and you wanted to insert data from that, you can do that. So pretty much we're good to go here. This wasn't too painful, not too many glitches. It's a little herky-jerky on my end. But now to be able to insert another table, what we need to do is I'm going to click inside the table. But what I want to select is the section. Okay, so that whole section is selected. And then I'm going to hit the right arrow key. And hopefully this is working correctly. We'll find out in a minute. What I can do now is I can go to File, Import. And I want tabular data. So hold on one sec here. It's not working, so that's not selected right. So the section is selected. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit the right key. Now, why aren't you working here? Let me switch to design view. And then that, again, that's one of those things that is probably why it's not working. So I'm going to go ahead and select the table again. Actually, the whole section. Okay, and I'm going to hit the right. There we go. Now it will be inserted after the closing tag for the previous table that we just inserted and styled. Now I can go to File, and I can go to Import, and now I see that I have tabular data selected. And we go and we're going to browse inside our root folder. And inside the green styles here, we should have, let's see where it is. Here, let's go inside resources. And we should have classes CVS. This is what we want to bring in. So this is the data that was saved probably using an Excel spreadsheet. Now we can go ahead and click open. I'm going to leave the default settings here because, to be perfectly honest, I forget what they want here. Table width, we're not going to set it to, we're going to let CSS specify that. Well, let's set to 100%. Yeah, delineated by commas. And I think we should be set to go here. No formatting. Border, we'll make border 0. And click OK. And we should be set to go. And now when we scroll down here, we can see that we have yet again another one. Now, what I can do here is I can select this particular table. Okay, make sure that it's selected. I'm going to switch from design view back to live view. Scroll down. Okay, make sure that the table is selected. And then I'm going to make sure that a section tag is wrapped around it, just like the other, so that you can see that it's not properly formatted, but because there is an extra column, we'll have to finish this up on Thursday, but we'll go ahead and we'll format some additional elements for this to make sure that they all fit for this as well. And we're also going to copy and paste some of the attributes that we created for the section, the columns that we have in the previous one. So and apply them to the new names that we have here. So I'll go ahead and I'll add the plus here, and I want it to wrap the tag around. And I'm going to go ahead and highlight it and put in section and hit return key. And you'll notice that it immediately formatted it. So again, all that heavy lifting that we've done makes it pretty easy to format all of this. But now you'll notice that we'll need to change the width of the description column. The width of the class cost can probably remain the same. The day and weeks and that sort of the length will have to be modified and added because we have 5 columns now, and before we only had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 5 columns now. We need to allow for that. So we'll add another selector for our additional one column that was not present in the earlier one, and then we'll be set to go. So that's pretty much it for today. We'll continue. I'll make sure that this is saved, and we'll continue formatting this on Thursday. And then we'll do probably the hardest part, and that will be to make sure that our tables are formatted correctly for smartphone. Okie doke. And that's where it gets, we have quite a bit of styles to add in that one. It gets a little bit confusing. So if you have your textbook in front of you, that will be starting around page 290 or so. And it goes all the way to 293, 294. So, and you'll find that there's a lot of them, to make it fit appropriately for a responsive website on a phone. There's a lot of new selectors that we need to create for that. Anyway, not too many glitches today, not too difficult. Things seem to be working out pretty well for this. I'll just make sure that this is saved. And I need to make sure that I save all so that it saves my style sheet as well. And we'll continue with this on Thursday. Okie doke. Any questions before we leave today? No? Don't forget to be working on your MobiRise website. It can be similar to what you did for Wix, or it can be entirely different. It's up to you. Okay. Then in that case, I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll pause the recording, and I'll see everybody on Thursday. And I'll have this posted online within an hour or so. Okay. Okie doke. Bye-bye.